Hi, shalom, friends. The Talmud is not only a legal compilation, but it actually is the collective wealth of divine wisdom for the Jewish people. And there are, without exaggeration, hundreds of statements that are found in the Talmud that extol and bring out the concept of teshuvah, returning to God, and to bring out how available it is. One of the remarkable stories is found in the Babylonian Talmud, Avodah Zarah, page 17. And it's about, and I'm going to paraphrase, it's about a playboy. There was a man whose name was Elazar ben Dudaya. And he had a particular fondness for women, and that was his weakness and temptation. So the Talmud tells us that he indulged in this particular activity, and once heard that there's a very attractive prostitute that lives far away. Well, instead of sufficing with the local talent, he took a bag of coins and traveled a long distance till he could come and commit a sin with this new person. In the midst of this act, she blew out some air, and she made a remark. She said, just as the air cannot be returned to its source, in other words, I can't bring back my air, so too, you're lost to God. You'll never be accepted by God. And hearing this from a prostitute somehow hit him very deeply. It's not something you heard from a rabbi or a teacher. Actually, you heard it from a person who wasn't exactly the highest level of spirituality, and it affected him profoundly. And he realized how low he had fallen. And the Talmud then tells a story. He decided to better himself. So he went out and he sat between two large hills. And he said, hills, mountains, can you pray on my behalf? And they said, no, we have our own issues to consider. And then he looked at the stars and the moon and the sun, and he asked them, can you pray on my behalf? And they also replied, we have to take care of ourselves. We can't take care of you. So Elazar ben Dudaya said, I guess it's up to me. And he began to think so deeply about who he was, what he was, and where he had, and how he had lived his life, that he began to feel incredibly remorseful, and his head dropped between his knees, and eventually he died in that position. His soul left him. And at that moment, a heavenly voice came out and said, Rabbi Eliezer ben Dudaya. Suddenly this playboy misfit turned into a teacher. Rabbi Eliezer ben Dudaya will have a share in the world to come. Now it's an amazing story and can be interpreted on every level, starting from the most obvious. But let me share with you another reading. It has been suggested, why did he ask the hills? So some read into the hills as an allegory. The hills refer to his parents. And he said, it's not my fault. The reason why I am the way I am is because the hills created me this way. My father, my mother, I have their genes and their upbringing. So he wanted to shift responsibility for his actions upon his upbringing. And he heard this heavenly echo saying, your parents have their own issues to deal with. Don't blame them for your issues. So he looked at the sun and the moon and the stars and he said, well, maybe it's just nature. Maybe I was born under a certain star. Maybe I just have this urge, this desire, this tendency inside of me. Maybe I'm compelled to do this. It's all the laws of nature. And he hears the response, don't blame the laws of nature for your decisions. When he realized that he could not shift the responsibility to his parents, nor could he justify his actions based on the nature, he then said, and I suppose it's all my fault. It's my decision. It's the way I have chosen to act. And the more he began to think about the more real it came to him, and the more regret he began to feel, and the more remorse, and the more shame, and the more the desire to change. And that desire, coupled with the disgust of the life that he had lived, brought him to a level of closeness to holiness, to spirituality, and when his soul left him, he left blameless as a teacher, as a rabbi. What is this lesson telling us? When we think about ourselves, and we realize that there is so much that we could do better, and that we would like to improve in, unfortunately, we immediately begin to rationalize and say, I would like to be better, but it's not my fault. This story tells us and reminds us it's not a question about shifting blame. I keep on using the word responsibility. I've seen it said many times, drive responsible, drink responsible. I think if we were to accept responsibility, accept that we are who we choose to be, and we always have the opportunity to choose to improve, then we actually will improve. And it doesn't have to take a lifetime. Sometimes there's a moment when we accept that responsibility, we rise to the challenge, and we persevere, and we are successful. To the extent that some of the greatest teachers of Israel, who spent a lifetime studying and being holy, looked with admiration at this person and said, some people spend a lifetime to achieve a level, and Rabbi Eliezer ben Dudaya achieved it in a moment. So that is the thought I want to leave with you. We can become great. For some, it's a gradual incline, day after day, step after step, mitzvah after mitzvah, hour after hour, day after day, we're constantly climbing the ladder. For many of us, it's 2 steps ahead, 1 step in the back. Occasionally, for some of us, it's falling into an abyss. But in all of the cases, if we accept the responsibility that I am here because of my decisions, and with my decision I can relieve myself, you will be successful. So shalom, may we accept the responsibility given upon us and truly become great.